Hello there, and welcome to a very, very improvised and therefore probably a bit rambly review of the Livetrak L-8. And that's from the point of view of a musician slash broadcaster or streamer, amateur broadcaster, but still. So I'm mostly going to talk about some features to do with music and some setups to do with music, and a few things about the driver and how well it interacts with streaming software, which for musicians is usually a big pain in the ass. This makes it really easy. So I'm going to talk about this. If you're a podcaster, I think there's not a lot of, incentives for you to watch this. I'll just say one thing: if you're a podcaster, be advised that this unit, as opposed to the superior version, the L12, I think, does not have compressors. So I think the L12, I think it's the L12 or L10, has an additional knob here that is for compression, which basically allows you to compress each signal, which is quite nice for voice. I have a compressor on my voice right now, but it's coming from a pedal way before the signal hit the unit. And therefore, this has no compression. Even if you select a channel in the effect rack here, you only have reverbs and basically delays and a mixture of reverb and delay. And I think the reason for that is that compressors need to be on a per channel basis, because this is basically one effect and then you send many channels onto one effect, and for there to be a compressor effect, you'd have to have a separate effect for each channel. It makes no sense to compress. I mean, it does make sense, but it's kind of not the point to compress everything. You'd want to have a compressor for each channel separately. So that's not possible with this unit. Just be advised. Alright, now moving on to music, I want to talk about I think the selling point for me was the mixes. And you have 4 mix. You have the master, and then you have the mix A, B, and C, which you don't have to use, but you can still use if you do that. You may have heard something a bit funky right there. That's because I switched this button, and I'll explain why a bit later. So you have mix A, B, and C, and the master mix. And you can access them really easily by pressing mixer and going there, and you can see that the values on the lights do change. So you always have a visual feedback for sound like this, but you also have a stronger light that shows you where your volume is. So that means that mix B is actually getting none of the signal I'm getting, or you're getting when talking through this. So the mixes are amazing. For example, my headphones are on mix C. And that means that I can, if I don't like my voice, or if I want to hear myself louder, I can just raise that up or bring that down. At the moment, I cannot hear myself, yet you can still hear me. And likewise, if you have a sound that only you want to hear, you can make it so if you want to preview, for example, you have this sound pad capabilities, and I can literally bring it down for you, so you guys are at 0 volume, and I'm still hearing them. So I can preview this sound. I'm clicking it at the moment, and when I'm happy with it, I can raise that up and you can hear it. It's one of the pre-built sound pads. A cool feature, a cool additional feature. This is packed with features. So I have a separate mix for myself, and I have a mix for the master. And this is especially useful when it comes to Skype calls, whether it's giving lessons through Skype or it's chatting with friends, Zoom, Discord, whatever you name it. Basically, you're going to have a signal coming from the USB into the mixer. And so in this case, it will be this one, for example. So that's USB 1.2. And it goes right there, as you can see. And that means that right now, if I were to speak with someone through Skype, they would actually hear themselves, which is very disturbing for the other person. So what I can do is I can just bring that down on the master mix, so they don't hear themselves. But I do bring it up in the mix C, which is my own headphone mix. Therefore, I can hear them, but they cannot hear themselves. And that's just one of the possibilities you can do with the mix. I'll show you another one. Mix A, at the moment, is only getting a signal from the two main tracks here, I think. Yes. The reason being, those two tracks are a synth that I have routed through there. Actually, I think it's a piano at the moment. Yeah, whatever, it's a electronic piano. And you can hear this echoey delay effect. Let me just make sure. Yeah, you can hear it. And that's coming from those two channels, but that effect is not coming from the piano directly. That effect is actually, I did route that effect inside of the mixer. I'm going to try to explain this again, because I think I did a terrible job right there. This mix has a stereo jack going into effects unit, the Zoya, coming back into channel 3 and 4, meaning that I can have the Zoya listen to whatever I want. I can actually even apply the effect on my own voice. I just need to go to the proper mix A, and this time I have to basically tell the Zoya, you can listen to this. So you're about to hear something very funny. You ready? Now this is my voice with an effect on it. And I can control like this what I want the Zoya to hear. I can even feedback into the same effects unit by having it listen to itself. I'm not going to try this here because that sounds dangerous in terms of volume. But if I were to raise those two, that means the signal gets in there from the FX unit and then gets sent back through mix A to the same FX unit. And if I don't have it too loud, I can probably have sort of a faster sound. And that's about it. When broadcasting, because that's my only other point of discussion, you can only listen, quote unquote, listen through OBS to the master mix. So when in broadcast mode, you're going to want to have your master mix represent exactly what you want your audience to hear. And if you want to hear something else, you can put yourself on a different mix and add that component or remove it. Excuse me. And you can easily copy and paste mixes. Just click B, press copy, press another mix, and then paste. I didn't do it this time because I don't want to mess up my mixes. But overall, it's fairly easily configurable once you get the gist of it, and the routing possibilities are somewhat endless. And yeah, so let's talk a bit about broadcasting. If you're a broadcaster, this is an amazing simplification of your life, especially if you're going to use ASIO. I don't know how to phrase that, but let me just jump into another screen here. How am I going to do this? Just give me a sec. I didn't really prepare this. There we go. So this is Reaper. It's a workstation for making music, and well, the great thing is you have basically ASIO drivers where you find basically all inputs you want. Basically the master, you can just get the master out of the unit as an input into your DAW, or you can get each channel individually. And channels 7 and 8 are actually stereo channels, so you can actually get two signals from them. So I just put the first channel, the last channel, so I have access to everything. And it has 4 outs. It's crazy. So I'm going to try to explain this to the best of my abilities. Inside of Windows or Mac, with the default drivers, you're only going to get one line out. If you look at my config here, everything else is just things that need to be disabled, right? There we go. And this is the only device that is presented to me with the default driver installed. So it's just a one line out, and this actually reflects back to USB 1 and 2 here on the unit. So that's the first of the two stereo channels. But there's actually another stereo out, which they haven't shown in the default driver, but if you open any software with the ASIO driver, you can access that. So that means that right now, my Reaper, I have recorded something before here. I think you can hear it, right? Never mind, sorry, you can't hear it because that is all the way down on the unit. So let me bring that back up. So I had something recorded here on my Reaper session, and you can see, I'm gonna try to make this window a bit bigger. Just give me a sec. Unpreparedness. There you go, sorry about that, but you can see the signal is coming out of channel, sorry, it's a bit loud. You can see that the signal is coming from this channel. However, this is also the channel that the rest of my computer use. And by the way, I can totally, on the same time, listen to a song on YouTube. Let me just grab anything from YouTube, something good. Yeah, some piano playing guy. This is a YouTube video. This is the ASIO driver. So they're not really meant to be at the same time, but they can be, and they'll be mixed together on that channel. However, you can also go into your Reaper. Let me just check that I still have Reaper on there, and you can actually route somewhere else. So yeah, whatever DAW you use, this is absolutely not dependent on the DAW, but I can actually specify out 3 and 4, meaning if I delete 1 and 2, that now I get my song here is coming on this channel. So I can have a separate channel just for my DAW, and then I can have a channel for the rest of the sounds coming from my computer. Did I mention I get 10 milliseconds in, 20 milliseconds out with the default settings? Let me just double check that I'm not doing, yeah, 512 samples, 48 kilohertz. I can bring that down, I think easily to 256 for that kind of use, and I'll be having a latency of 5 seconds in, 15 seconds out for a combined, no, I think it's a combined latency of 15 milliseconds or 20 milliseconds. In any case, it's really low. It works flawlessly. It's fantastic. No issues so far with the driver, whether it's using ASIO, whether it's using YouTube, whether it's doing complex mixes. It's fantastic. It works really well. Did I cover everything I wanted to cover? Good question. I covered the latency. I just want to say the drivers are really good. Then there's not a lot of options. I kind of wished for a little bit more options. There's no access to the driver here. Let me see. Nope. I don't know how to access the driver. But no, overall it works really well. Yes, I wanted to say one more thing about the recording, onboard recording section. So you have scenes, that's for like memory of the board, and you have a recorder which only works if you have if you have a SD card plugged in. And I'll just say one thing about this, is that I'm not finding myself using it as much as I wanted, because it's not as fast as I thought it would be to record, just snap ideas and stuff. my main grip is that I don't think you can see the screen really well, and I'm sorry for that. Let me try to see if I can dim the light. That didn't help, did it? Oh well. It's gonna take a second. Basically, when I hit record, it says please wait for just a second. But it depends actually on how many tracks you have there. And it depends on the quality of your SD card. This is a class 10 SD card in there. So yeah, it works. It's a very good recorder, and it works. It records track by track. It doesn't record the effects, from what I recall, but it does record anything pre-fader. Doesn't record the mix and the effects, but it does record the input basically, and it records the effects and the mix on the master track if you want that mix. Now, yeah, there's two things. The first thing is that it's quite slow to set up. It does say, please wait when you're trying to record. When you're trying to playback, it does say please wait. Basically, it's kind of slow. Maybe it's just on my end, maybe because of the SD card I put in there, but it's quite a good class 10, 32 gigs SD card, fully functional. So I think it's more like that this has this very slow processor or a slow RAM. I don't know exactly what's going on. Also, it's kind of unintuitive, but you need to press play. So you need to actually hit 2 buttons to start recording. If you forget the second one, you're not recording. And then you need to manually go back at the end. It's not, basically, it doesn't feel like it's the most intuitive recorder. And I don't know if some of the features are on purpose, for you to not make mistakes, basically. But I don't feel like, I feel like I'm more likely to forget one button and therefore mess my recording. I also sometimes hit the wrong channels to rec, and therefore I don't rec the right things. And for example, as you can see, for example, I have rec on. I haven't started recording. I haven't pressed this button yet, and now I cannot change things because it's already basically made a folder with the 4 tracks and the master. But these 4 I cannot add. And likewise, if I started recording, I couldn't just add a track. Let me just try 1, 2, adding a new track, which is my voice. No, you can't. So you have to stop everything. So you're not in record mode. It says please wait again. And now you can change which inputs you want. I still don't know what the green light does. I think it's just for playback. Or maybe it's for overdub. That might be for overdub. Sounds like it would be overdub. Yeah, basically the recorder, maybe firmware updates could make it just simpler. Yeah, two things, just to be able to go through, to go through those settings. No rec channels. It doesn't even want me to rec because there's no channel specified. I guess this logic makes sense, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not super happy with it. The tempo section was a plus for me to be able to practice, but it's kind of hard to get the right tempo, and there's no tap tempo. Unless I'm mistaken. I might be mistaken on this. Don't quote me on that. But from what I remember, there's no tap tempo, so you have a scroll wheel here. And how you activate tempo is beyond me. I think you need to be in rec mode. No. Oh yes, that's how you activate the tempo, is by going into settings, going into metronome, and going into click, rec and play, or rec only, or play only. But it's not like a thing that you could just, click and it just works, which would be lovely. So yeah, the onboard recording I think is just like a plan B backup, or when you're on the move, but you'd have to basically, it's kind of a setup. Make sure you're really, really well set up in your recording, and then don't touch it anymore and just record the entire session. It's not like rec, go back, overdub, rec, stop, play, pause and stuff. It doesn't look that good for that purpose. And I think, having said that, I can't think of anything else. I've been very pleased. Oh yeah, maybe one problem is that this is very mobile, and I love to take it for, like, for example, I'd love to hook that on the side of my upright piano and start recording my piano, but I cannot. The reason for that is that it's so good as an interface between my microphone and my computer that I just don't want to get it out of my computer, like of my desktop computer space. So it's a bit stupid, but this is meant for mobility. But as you can see, I have it hooked up and it's working so well as the centerpiece of my studio, basically, and streaming setup, that basically I'd want to keep it there. And almost, if I had the money, would go for another one, which I would bring with me. And so its mobility factor is impacted by the fact it's so good where it stands right now, that I don't want to, have it on a shelf that I can just grab it. I'd have to actually, unplug everything. And it's basically so good at being a static unit that its mobility is impacted in a way. That's about it. I can't think of anything else. It sounds like it would be a great live stage mixer. Maybe the output power is not that strong there, but I think you can get by. Unless you're looking for crystal clear quality sound. If it's just for monitoring purposes, you could have it up to 10, and that's quite loud. So you should be fine. You'd have noise, of course, but that would be just for monitoring. So who cares? Oh, maybe the effects. There's a lot of reverbs and a lot of delays, but they're not that great, first of all, and I don't know. Maybe include other effects. There's other things that people can play with, especially because it's so playful. The whole thing could use other effects. I think I'm going to stop here because it's been long. I just want to reiterate one of the strong points is the mixes. You'll get that on no other unit, and it does allow for a lot of creative routings. And you can basically, if you have a problem with your setup, you can probably solve it with the mixes. And the other thing is the drivers. They are very stable and they work really well with ASIO, is all I wanted to say, but I took 20 minutes or so to say that. Alright, thank you very much, and have fun making music.